Welcome back to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Today's show, we have Neil Peterson. Neil has over a decade of lighting experience, spanning lighting and pole product strategy, layout designs, controls, and a wide range of product applications. As CEO of LED Lighting Supply, Neil leads a team supporting the commercial, industrial, and sports markets with a focus on solutions for industrial, sports, and harsh environments, including oil refineries, factories, and power plants. In his role, Neil has a particular interest in product planning, supply chain strategy, and sales management, providing a bird's eye view into the ebbs and flows of the lighting industry. Before we get to Neil, though, folks, we got to keep it easy. We got to go with the big easy. That's right, KeystoneTech.com. Greg Garrick. That's KeystoneTech.com.
I think we're going to talk about a wide range of topics today, but I know one thing we might get into is sports lighting. And guess what? Keystone is in it. They've got their XFit sports lighter. The nice thing about this, one, it's a powerful fixture up to 100,000 lumens. It can be mounted 164 feet high with the ability to mount the driver remotely at the base of the pole. If you're ever doing a sport light project, you know that getting to the access to the height is very difficult. If you can replace the driver right at the base without getting a lift, that's a win, buddy. Keystone.
Keep keep it easy, buddy. Light made easy with the big easy. KeystoneTech.com. That's right, KeystoneTech.com. Of course, they're members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. If you have a warehouse and it has lights in it, what are you waiting for? This is where all the cool kids hang, buddy. And we're all getting together in September in Dallas, Texas for our annual convention where we decide the future of the lighting industry. That's right. So if you want to be a player in this game, sucker, you got to go to NAILD.org. That's right, nailed.org. What's up, Neil Peterson?
Hey, thank you, Greg and Mike. Appreciate you having me today.
No problem.
Yeah,
And thanks.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
Greg.
was reading a little bit on your website that you guys are in 2020 called LED Lighting Supply. That makes sense to me. Before that, started in 2008, you guys were My LED Lighting Guide. Give us the
Right.
background on where that came from and why you are what you are today.
Yeah. My LD lighting guide started in 2009, as you're aware, early on in LEDs. LEDs were, remember that everyone complained of the blue light and that, and so we grew. And in 2020, we felt our name really wasn't appropriate for what we were doing. It connotated more of a consumer focus, where at that point we switched to LED lighting supply. And so for over the last 10 years, our main focus has been on industrial lighting requirements, sports lighting, and in the last 2 years we've added poles to that in addition to our standard commercial offerings. But our main focus, we excel in those complex, multiple requirement, harsh environment applications where you may have explosive requirements, you may have high mass requirements, they may have high temperature requirements, such as in steel plants, paper mills, where they require over up to 200-degree Fahrenheit. So we really focus on those. But in addition, you'll find warehouses, factories, where there are also requirements in those environments. So we appeal to those customers that have broad lighting requirements. Additionally, as you mentioned, sports lighting, we've just had many successful years in sports lightings, and have just been very successful with that, as your company has been.
When you started, or were you there when you guys started My LED Lighting Guide?
No, in 2009, I was actually a partner company with them. I was in controls. I was with a company called Simcon Lighting. That was one of the first people really in the control space. And after a period of time, I did join My LED Lighting Guide in around 2014 timeframe, and I've been here ever since.
And the interesting thing when I read that is, I've got a company and a website and all that too. People do kind of need to still be guided in the LED lighting industry, and were you guys
More
seeing
than
more as
ever.
an, oh
More than
yeah,
ever.
and were you guys seeing more as educating people and then not selling to people? Is that why you had to change the name? Is it because they're looking at you as a resource and not necessarily? a seller?
Well, well, Google definitely thought that. The
Yeah.
guide, Google. But yeah, no, I mean, in the early days, people really didn't know what they needed. They doubted LED. They had heard of the blue light and it wasn't reliable. So yes, there was a lot of education, up until around 2019, 2020, when we're, we now, uh, we work with a lot of vendors that kind of know what they want, but still you still get that person come and say, "Hey, I need 1,000 watt LED to replace my 1,000 watt metal halide," and we do educate those people. What we do a lot of lighting plans, both full blown lighting plans and what we call quick and easy lighting plans. And so, in the last 12 months, we've done over 2,000 lighting plans for our customers. What a lighting plan does for you is it tells you the fixture we're using, the light levels you're going to get, where they're positioned. So when a customer goes and makes the decision, they know the light level they're going to get. So, so we take the mystery out of, am I picking the right wattage? Are the fixtures where I need them to be? So, but yes, to answer your question, there still is education, but moving to the LED lighting supply really more represented who we are
Hmm.
and our customer, and we've grown significantly since we did that.
Are you guys offering those lighting plans for free?
Yeah, for the customers, once we qualify, yes, we do. That's just part of our sales process. We do a very consultative sale. We're not, customer says they need something, we just don't usually quote that. We ask the questions. We try to understand what their true requirements are. If we feel a lighting plan is required or they've requested one, in most cases, we will do one because that just assures the customer that they're getting what they need. And that's the most important thing for us. And I don't know if you were on our website, you saw our reviews, just a lot of satisfied customers. And
And you guys have your own software, or are you using just basic lighting photometric software?
yeah, no, so we actually have a team of people that do it. We use, I forget what we use. It's not AutoCAD. It's one of the applications that we use. So our people are well trained on it. Our salespeople aren't doing those lighting plans. We have a group of lighting engineers that do those. They're submitted into the system. They're prioritized. On average, you know, we do a lot of them, and they're very informative and they really help the customer. And it also then extends our brand to the customer too. Because sometimes some of the lighting plans we do go out to bid, and when the lighting plan comes out in the bid, our product is specified there with the lighting plan.
Yeah, it's something that I wonder about at times, Mike, too. I don't know on your end, but doing lighting plans, when it makes sense. I know exterior, it seems like is when I do it the most, but should we be doing more? Do you do it? How often are you doing it? Like, what percentage of the
Um,
projects?
Yeah, I find when you're doing
well,
lighting plans, like he's asking me, I think, right, Greg? I'm
Well,
not.
both you guys.
Yeah,
Mike
yeah.
can Mike can have an opinion too, I guess, on his show.
I'm not. It is our show. Um, the I find lighting plans. So I probably target a different market than you slightly. There's probably a lot of crossover, but I find lighting plans are either for very large properties that have specific needs, tough requirements, tough environments, stuff like that. You want to get into that a little bit more. But generally, I find when you're into lighting plans, you're dealing with an employee, and I usually have very good success dealing with the owner or the CFO talking about financial matters and leaving the lighting problem to me. And kind of as opposed to laying the whole thing out and going over drawings. I find that's more for the people that aren't decision makers. I kind of stick to most of the time. There are times, like you said, there are environments where you need to really set it out. So my sales process would be the opposite of Neil's. That doesn't mean I'm right and he's wrong. It's just a different way of going about business.
Mm.
And we're operating in a context where people are trying to show their value, and for Neil, I think it's more about this planning phase, and it gives his salespeople confidence, and that for me, like my employees do more of that than I do. I swing through the trees with a knife in my teeth, Neil. Done.
well, I might do that too, but I find they're really, where someone has a 400 watt metal halide high bay in a shop and they have 20 of them, yeah, you don't need to do a lighting plan. Sometimes they like it just for reassurance because they sometimes think, oh, I need a 400 watt LED. But you can, depending on the height, you can do that with anything from a 100 to a 200 watt LED
It's really
product, and
hard to screw
you can
that up.
save anywhere. Yeah, you can't screw that up. Well, only problem I see is they come and say it's too bright.
Sure, that happens
There's
sometimes.
too much light. And in those spaces, we're now using the wattage changeable fixtures in many
Sure.
cases. So the customer can dial it down. So,
Mm.
but I think where the lighting plans really come into play is when you really have high mounting height, where it's
Mm-hmm.
potentially a new design or they're reconfiguring their shop or going to a different fixture, or they tell you they weren't happy with their light,
Mm.
uh, on the indoor. On the outdoor parking, again, if you're doing a 1-for-1 and fixtures are pointed straight down, you pretty much know the light you're going to get. But the fields is where we really find it comes into play. And we've probably only in one instance really had we do hundreds of these a year
Mm.
as far as from an installation. And we're mainly up to that, that high school level. We do some smaller colleges, but the little league, the high school level, and you really want to do a lighting plan for those because they have expectations on what they think they need. When we provide a lighting plan, we'll show pictures of an equivalent light level.
Especially
And
when you're dealing with a
really
board of directors for a community. Yeah, they're really going
yeah.
to want to look to that for sure. I agree with you on that. It depends on the customer
And
in that
but
regard.
you also run into many towns when you're doing a lighting plan, and we'll a lot of times use Google Maps and zoom in if there are houses around it. You then got to take and play what's the light pollution that's happening. How far out
Mm.
is the light going? Do you need
Mm.
shields? Do you need to use tighter optics to keep the light more on the ground? So there's a lot
Mm.
of things that come into play when you're dealing with fields.
Mm.
So
And so, in my research, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong here, Neil, but it looks like you guys have your own fixture brand, meaning you're probably importing them direct. And
sure,
to me, that makes sense why you'd be more concerned about lighting plans because you want your fixture locked in. For guys like Mike and I, we're working with or manufacturers, and we'll pick and
sure.
choose whatever is best. Is that correct? Is that what you guys do?
Yeah, that's great. So we're very involved in the product design or planning and design. We work with about 2 or 3 lead factories, and yes, we bring the products in, and they are branded under us. And the thing we do a little differently, and we've found our optics for many of our we'll call field lighting and even parking light. We've really done some special things with the optics. So, for example, in a parking lot, our type, and because we take other people's IES files. We do comparisons. Our Type 3, Type 4 optic is just incredible what it does with a fixture that we have that comes with a 10-year warranty. It just, the throw is just so much superior in a dark sky requirement space. And then from the field standpoint, we, in many cases, will use very tight optics and or in cases where it's funny, you get a field, the poles are 60 feet, 40 to 60 feet, and then they tell you it's dark sky, so the fixture's got to be pointing down. And a lot of the fixtures out there do not have the right optics to be able to do that. That really requires a very forward throw in a stadium type light, which is not always part of a design. Usually, a stadium light, it's intended you're directional. So we've gone down that path. We've also recently, as I heard you, which is a great feature, is the remote driver. We're moving to the remote drivers now. We weren't doing that early on. Not that there's a lot of support, but it just gives the customers that extra confidence that if there is a problem, and we both know if there's a problem, it's going to be a driver. Why not have the drivers at the ground level? And it really adds really little cost to the product. So it is we've really moved in that direction, or are moving in that direction also.
I would like to advise the industry. This is an industry advisement that there's no such thing as dark sky friendly stadium lighting. That's not; those two things do not go together. Okay, that like I just
It's very true.
Yeah,
an
yeah.
advisement to everybody that the what you need to do is get some good controls on that systems to make sure that it's off when there's nobody playing a sport. And that's what we're trying to. We're not trying to stop people from playing sports at night, but we want to make sure those lights get turned off very easily and quickly at the end of the sports game. The idea that something is a stadium lighting can be dark sky friendly, that's a contradiction in terms. by definition. I mean, the whole idea is to create a massive amount of light in a space. And yes, we can do better. Agreed. We can shield things. We can stop light trespass, is what you're talking about before with the shielding onto the neighbors' houses.
Correct.
But we can't stop the creation of sky glow and light pollution from fields. But we can mitigate it by using controls. And that's where I think there's an awesome opportunity for lighting control systems. And they don't have to be super complicated. I don't think it needs to be overly complicated. There's lots of programmable things out there that do a great job. Whether the coaches need an app on the phone, or there's a whole bunch of different ways to accomplish that. But the key is to get those lights off when they're not being used as soon as possible. So just a public service announcement for the lighting industry right there. But yes, not that I'm against having sports at night, Neil.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. So the model's a different model. Okay, so there's something called the distribution channel. I'm sure you've heard of that term before, where and so the distribution channel basically fell apart somewhere around 2017, Greg, I would say. You saw lots of companies like LED Lighting Supply. And, in Toronto here, we have many Chinese immigrants that are very good businessmen. And they have an inside edge in China because they're from China and they speak Chinese. And so there's a lot of direct importing. I think that model is waning. I think that there seems to be a return to the distribution channel. Why do you think LED Supply is going to continue to succeed with this direct to market import model? What is it about it that you guys do differently that's going to make the difference?
Well, I think we do a lot of surveys. I mean, we're very much a marketing company, and what our surveys have told us is that our customers are looking for a knowledgeable sales staff. That's number one. Number two, cost-effective solutions. Number three, quality, and number four, product in stock. And their biggest pain points in these surveys is, again, product availability by far. When a customer gets a project, they want to move fast. In many cases they can wait 4 to 6 weeks, but they're not going to wait for a ship to come in. The other is, lastly, confidence in the salespeople that they're dealing with, that they know what they're talking about. That's where we focus. Our biggest value add is the knowledgeable staff, and from training, from coaching, and that's so if you were to talk to one of our customers, they'd say, "Hey, the guy knew what he wanted. We got the lights when he said he would. The pricing was fair, and boy, we love the light." So we are seeing now a number of the breed like us that you talk about, the non-distribution, and we've seen them, but we've seen some of them go out of business recently. But when you really look at their product offerings, they were in the A19s, they had the can lights. They really were in a mode where those are distribution products. When what we hear from our customers when they're dealing with distribution, they're dealing with a rep or they're dealing with a distributor. The product knowledge is not as high, and so it's where when we compete in that, we're winning because our salespeople know what they're talking about and are really advising the customer based on their requirements, not based on the product we have. So,
If somebody were to ask you what you guys consider yourself, what do you tell them?
It's a good question. I mean, I guess we're truly a lighting consultant that sells products. We're distributor 2.0, where we're selling the products. Okay,
Yeah.
we've taken to that next step. We don't have those channels, and that also means we're able to be potentially more cost competitive too, for the same or better quality product. Again, we all use the same drivers, we all use the same LED chips. I mean, all the components come from Asia in most cases, and that's just the reality
That's
of
an
the world.
old argument, though. That's an old argument.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all comes from the same factory in China. Then what's different about you then? I mean, like,
Well,
that's a rhetorical question, actually. But so the idea that, and I mean, I'm not here to say what you're doing is wrong. You're obviously being successful in
no.
that. But what I am calling to is that I found the biggest problem with the import export distribution model is that distributors can distance themselves from products that are defective or bad or what have you. We can send them back. In your case, I would say my biggest, if I was up against you,
Hmm.
I would play the warranty card on you hard. I would say, of course, these guys. How could they have no warranty manufacturer? They're talking about their own warranty, and if they brought in a bunch of defective products that aren't that good, what are they going to do with them? They're going to sell them to you. That would be my argument against you if I was in the field. If I came across you, I would say you can't trust that
Sure.
company. They bring in their own products. Of course, their products are the best because that's all they have access to. They have no choice. They can't go. They can't go to various manufacturers and find the best product for them. And I think that's the one flaw in the model that a lot of people struggle with. Now, obviously, your business is succeeding and you're doing well, and that's great. But that's where I think a lot of the people that have fallen out of this position, they kind of, it's hard for you not it's hard in a situation where you have X amount of fixtures in stock to say, yeah, shred those, they're not that good, we didn't get a good batch from Asia, not everything is the same. You know what I mean? And I don't buy that argument that all the stuff that comes out of China is the
Sure.
same. I don't think it
No,
is.
and fair enough. I think what we've done is we've really restricted ourselves. We're over in China at least once or twice a year inspecting our factories. We're part of the design, but products do fail. We recently had a big utility that we sold product to almost 5 years ago, almost out of
Mm,
warranty. 180 units. They were retrofit screw-in, high-end product. Meanwhile, drivers separated from it, but they all started dying.
mm.
Guess what we did? We replaced the units with new high bays because those
But
those weren't
that's
available
limited. You
anymore.
can only take so many blows like
Oh,
that.
yeah, but no, it gets back. But our vendors are, because we use limited. We're not. We don't buy from everyone. We're very restrictive, long-term relationships, and so our warranties are automated. We're very responsive to our customers, and I'm not saying all people like us are, but in
Mm.
the case of, we back up our warranties to the end, and no matter
Yeah,
what it
until
takes. And that's
bankruptcy.
just,
Until bankruptcy,
well,
right? Like this is, I mean, I'm not like, again, you have a great business, but we're having a high level discussion about the
I
industry.
got you.
I think
I
that's
understand.
the advantage of the distributor without that's not tied to the import export. And I think we actually, Greg and I had a lot of conversations about this and with other members of Nailed about what the right move was from say 2014 to about 17, and then I think most of us doubled down on the channel. When you say, Greg,
Sure.
we said, you know what? I think it's better to be on the same side of the table as my customer in that warranty discussion, looking at the manufacturer on the other side of the table, and then saying to them, hey, you know what? How are you guys going to support my client today? And if you don't, you're losing all of my volume in the future. There's like a lot of carrots and sticks there in that arrangement that I think are, again, if I was competing against you in the field, I would be very quick to point that out to the customer, right?
Yeah.
And not that, I wouldn't say, obviously, I wouldn't disparage my competitor. I don't do that, but I would say, that this is probably something that, might be thought through a little bit a bit better. And then, at the end of the day, there's only so many of those blows you can take. Any company,
Sure.
I
Sure.
don't care if it's Leadvance or Signify, or down to the smallest Chinese import exporter here in Toronto. They can only take so many of those warranty blows before they show up at Atlas counter saying, we're bankrupt. Do you want to buy the rest of my stock for pennies on the dollar?
Sure.
Because I'm out.
That could be
I
what's
mean,
happening
that's
to some of the people.
happens all
Yeah.
the time here.
No,
Yeah.
fair enough. But I think we would both agree, or all three of us, that LEDs are so much more reliable than the old HID technology.
I
I
disagree
mean,
with that wholeheartedly. I think
do you?
that's wrong.
Do you really?
Yeah,
Why? Why?
because I'll give you an example. Just the other day, I think we talked about it on the last show, but we're just finalizing this one project. Um, a dealership upgraded their dealership in 2014 to LED, and they had a bunch of burnouts recently, and they couldn't figure out what to do. And in the past, through distribution, so you don't have a history in lighting distribution back into the legacy technology. But in the past, that customer would have ordered a case of 2 cases of 250-watt metal halide, and they would have screwed in the new bulb, and Bob's your uncle, and you're done. And maybe one ballast would have been out, but in 8 years, I don't know if one ballast probably would have lasted a lot longer than that, those old core and coil ballasts. And this time, you guess what? The guy was into, not, $200, $300 boxes of bulbs. He was into $2,000 to $3,000 worth of service work and drivers and everything else to fix the problem because the fixture was 10 years old. The driver was discontinued. The manufacturer was bankrupt. So I would say that it's the opposite. The lighting industry is much less sustainable than it's less sustainable now than it's ever been from a customer's perspective, from a person who has recently upgraded their fixtures to LED. And now 10 years later, I love Keystone. I think they're doing a great job. I think you guys are doing a great job with the remote drivers, but we're just rolling into that in year 10. I mean, you know why? Because in the past, everybody thought they were going to last forever. They're never going to burn out. And so, I think that, a lot of these innovations that we're coming across now were things that were already innovated in the previous generation of product that we abandoned, and we under the premise that the light fixture is never going to burn out. And suffice to say, guess what? They do, and we got lots of problems. And so I would disagree with that. I think the older technology, energy efficiency aside, yes, there
Sure,
are
sure.
societal benefits to energy efficiency. But in terms of life cycle, the LED fixtures do not have come close to the life cycle performance of a fluorescent troffer, T12 fluorescent troffer, which was in the ceiling for 40 years and upgraded 4 times from T12 to T8 to T5 to LED. That's some serious sustainability right there. That does not exist in
Sure.
LED fixtures today. So I disagree with you on that. But it depends on what you mean by sustainability or what you mean by performance. If you mean that the new fixtures last 2 to 3 fluorescent tube lives in terms of their life, great. What happens after that, right? And so I think that's where the rubber meets the road, and we're hitting that right now in the market, and where we have the entire townships changing out all of their street lights again after 7 years, and they didn't do it for 65 years or 50 years or
Right.
40 years, right? So I think I don't agree with you holistically on that point. So no, I think you're wrong about that, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Yeah, it's fair enough.
So regarding the import side of it, again, I know I have interest in
Sure.
that because we've always had discussions on it, and how we've chosen is to partner with manufacturers, multiple manufacturers that can buy it. Are you guys getting every product out there imported, or are you working with manufacturers at all?
Are we working with? I
Like
don't
if somebody
understand the
says,
question.
"Hey, I need a par 38, I need a par 30, I need a high bay, I need a canopy fixture, I need a area light." Do you guys have all of that covered, or do you have to say,
Yeah,
"Well, we
so
don't do A line"?
yeah, no, we don't do par 38s or any of those type things. I mean, we're more, wall packs. We do source uh, where we aren't bringing them in ourselves. Some of our wall packs, some of our canopies to just fill the void, and then we cover them if there are issues. But again, very restrictive number of vendors. We are not, we see a good product and we add another vendor, see another product, we add another vendor. Because again, from a logistics standpoint, you can only work with so many people and get the support you need to support your customers. So
What is a lead time now on getting a container?
container, usually a build is 40 days. On the water is probably 40 days, 35 to 40 days. The ports seem a little quiet now.
Mm,
Things are
Mm.
coming into port, and we're seeing the truck within 3 or 4 days. It used to be 10 to 20 days.
mm,
Um, and so containers are coming much quicker.
Mm.
And
And is it
whereas in
quicker
the
than when? Like within the last three
just
years,
a
or?
Yeah, just over time. I mean, I think uh, logistics has gotten better, but around COVID and after, things really
mm,
slowed down. The lead times really got long and really caused us to plan very far out.
mm.
And so, a lot of cases we were guessing. Fortunately, we guessed right in most of the cases. But
Whew,
you know,
thank God for that.
well, it
Was
was
is
crazy. I mean, you remember that the Suez Canal thing where
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
container
sure.
ship got stuck? I mean, that just bogged everything down. Everything took about an extra month or two at that point. And so
Hmm.
So if you looked
little
at
things.
2018 importing a container of T8 LEDs to now, is it quicker now or is it slower than
It's
2018?
it's a little quicker now. Probably a couple
It is
weeks.
quicker. Okay.
Yep.
So, Greg, I'm interested in the bird's eye view. I think you kind of started down this path because in your bio it says that, and I think you do have an interesting view that the average listener to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast wouldn't have. Um, is there consolidation in China? Have we seen, like when we went over there, Greg, you couldn't, turn a corner without finding an LED factory in Shenzhen. We're just walking around and they're everywhere. Like they're
Yeah.
literally everywhere. When I say
Mhm.
that, you're talking about a city of, I don't know, 12 million people. And you're walking through the areas and every single store was making LED tubes and LED fixtures. It was wild. Have you seen consolidation in that market? Are they reducing down? Is there consolidation on the Asian side?
We've definitely seen it. I mean, the what we call the little those vendors that provided every product from a tube to an A19 bulb to whatever. We've definitely seen a consolidation go on. We saw in China probably just prior to COVID, all of a sudden everyone was doing stadium lights. They were
Mm,
moving their whole operation to focus on stadium lights. And then COVID hit. So we did see during COVID, none of the vendors we deal with, but some of the vendors that normally communicate to us did disappear. They disappeared through COVID. They weren't able to survive. But we do see some consolidation, just as we do in the U.S.
mm.
There's definitely going on.
You see growth down the road here? I mean, or is it are people fighting it out for on the back end of this LED upgrade thing for harder applications, trying to sneak into hazardous? I mean, in my
Sure,
end, like in my market, Ontario, it's saturated with LED now. I mean, the biggest play for me is servicing LEDs that are burning out. I
sure.
mean, that's what I see as our largest opportunity for, nice orders that are in the under 10,000 but very profitable. That's where I see the future for us in the markets you're in. Do you see it? Are we on the back slope in your mind, or is there still growth?
By no means. There's still huge growth. There's still lots of places that are upgrading. We're running into, not where the LEDs are failing, but where back 10 years ago, where you went with a 200 watt or 200 watt
Mm,
LED to replace a 400 watt, you can now do that. In some cases, go down to 100 watt. So
mm,
they're able to get another full 50% energy savings on what
mm,
they're currently paying. So there are definitely an energy spin that we've found customers wanting to go and do those upgrades, because your 100 watt LED can put out 15, 16,000 lumens in many cases in a
mm.
high bay, as an
So you've
example.
done LED
So
to LED, a lot of LED to LED
we've
upgrades.
done it. We've
Mm,
done LED to LED. I haven't seen as many of the where they had to replace the LEDs. I mean, I've seen it, but I don't regularly see where they're all failing and they have to replace them. But I don't question that they're out there. But we see the market still booming. I mean,
mm,
we're very marketing focused. We've got so many inquiries every day, and we don't see it going down. We're growing year over year, and so I think we're still early on in what I call the
mm.
retrofit, which is where they're replacing HID fluorescent, old, uh, fixtures. So
I haven't
I
seen an
haven't seen
H.
any
I
of this
haven't seen a. I saw
market.
metal halide the other day, and I was like, "Whoa! There is a 400 watt metal halide. I can't believe it." I saw one the other day. I was like, "Whoa! This guy! I gotta go talk to this guy right now. You still got halides,
Yeah,
buddy? What are you thinking?" But
it's
I
funny.
mean,
You go. I'm sorry.
go ahead. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes visit places too, and it's funny. The utilities I find in their power plants, they still have a lot of HID
oh,
in many
sure,
of them.
yeah, sure.
They're the worst.
And they are the worst because they're not paying for the
Yes.
electricity. But we
Right.
deal a lot with a lot of those, and
I couldn't agree
but
more. Well, the nuclear power plants, they're not allowed to change anything here.
no,
They're
yeah,
not.
'cause they truly need to retrofit because of the engineering effort to change a fixture, and so
The ones in Ontario, they still have 4 foot metric T12s. 1 meter long T12s, buddy. Oh, man, I get a kick out of it. I ran out. I don't have any left. I sold them all to them. They can't get them anymore. But
and
I
it's
mean, these are the
it's
people paying
unsafe
the
for them
rebates.
too. Yeah,
Who? I mean, they're not. With the power plants, like there's all these companies around them, the nuclear power plants, where there's all this compliance to change anything. Like it's very difficult to change anything in a nuclear power plant. Like I'm turning screw number 36. He's turning through screw number 36. He just turned screw number 36. Like three people involved in the chain to turn gauge 36. That's how the nuclear power plants run. It's worse than flying planes. I don't know if you know anything about the airline, but in the airline, all they're checklist bandits, right? The plane needs to land
Right.
on a river. Pull out the river landing procedures. And they go through it. My brother's a pilot. He told me, like, like the guy that landed that plane on the river, he wasn't cowboying it in. He pulled out the water landing procedures and followed the procedures of landing on the water exactly to a T. He wasn't bringing the plane
Sure.
onto the Hudson River. The nuclear power plants are the same way. They have everything is 100%. He's changing the 40 watt metric T12 tube. He changed the 40 watt, and they check off all these lists to make sure everything stays exactly the way it was built. Otherwise, they end up with nuclear meltdowns, which would be a disaster for everybody.
Right.
But anyway, I'm off topic.
Right.
Greg.
But to get back to your question,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, you go ahead, Neil.
To get back to your question, we see the LED still going high. We're nowhere near any penetration. We see another 4 or 5 years of the current pace, and what it's going to be beyond that, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you. But the amount of inquiries, the amount of projects we're in, it's nonstop. So
are you doing any residential? Do you guys like multi-residential high rise or anything like that?
Not very little. We really stay away from that. We're not. That's not our. I'm sorry. We that's not our space. That is, they're more looking for the bathroom lights. They're looking for the ceiling the can lights.
Corridor
That's not our
fixtures,
space. Yeah, we are truly industrial, commercial, and we really don't stray into that space, and we avoid that. We do get the inquiries, and if they need outside parking, we definitely do it. But for the indoor, we really stay away from that. I mean, we do panels, but mainly for our customers that are buying other things and they need some panels too. That's really not our focus.
What made you guys get into poles? I saw you have utility poles, wood and steel. You're selling wood poles?
Wood poles, baby.
We are selling wood poles. It is, and no one really knows how to buy wood poles. And it has been a gangbuster for us. And we did it because our customers kept asking for it. And
well, wood poles are actually there's an argument that it goes both ways. Which one has less carbon dioxide emissions, right? I mean, there's actually a legitimate case for the wood pole, which deteriorates and whatever it stores carbon and all this sort of stuff. So, and actually, wood poles they have like a decent life. They have the same life as a metal pole if installed properly or whatever they call that, inserted into the ground properly. And it's sure as heck easy to maintain them, man. You just screw stuff into them. As where steels, if you have power lines and stuff like that and lighting in remote areas, I'll tell you, the power guys love wood poles. The power workers, I know a guy. He's like, wood's way better than metal. Because when they have to do something or fix them, they can adjust something up an inch and put in a leg screw there or whatever. Yeah, wood poles make a lot of sense for a ton of reasons. So I commend you for taking that market opportunity. I might copy you now, though.
We mainly focus on the fields with them, and we've actually got into sirens, around nuclear power plants where if there's a leak, the sirens go off, and we've done some other specialty, but the wood poles are taken off. And for parking, the metal poles under 30 feet, again, our customers had the requirement when we felt it was something that made sense for us to add.
So you talked about education of your employees earlier and how important that is, and I couldn't agree with you more. That I think the number one advantage today is not the product, it's the people. And I think even though whether you bring in your own product or you use the distribution channel, whatever it is, our number one asset is smart people that know about lighting. But we were just having a conversation out here with our crew, and they're like, everything's a project now. And when anytime somebody has a lighting problem, whether it's taking an existing building and changing the lights to LED, or whether it's some problems with their existing LED things, it's a complicated problem that a knowledge worker has to solve. It's not, there is supply on Amazon and stuff like that. And, Smarty Pants goes out there and buys his own thing. We've talked about Smarty Pants, Greg. Mr. Smarty Pants that knows everything and about. Yeah, Neil's laughing for those listening. He's laughing at what I'm saying because we've all encountered Mr. Smarty Pants, who knows more than the lighting professionals about lighting. But at the end of the day, everything seems to be a project, and where that a knowledge worker has to solve. And I think we need to continue to educate our people into this from this one-for-one mindset that has dominated the industry so long into the control space, into the darkness restoration and night preservation space, into the repairing the existing LED fixture space without having to rip everything out all the time. And I think that it's not a product issue, Neil. I think it's truly an education, training, and certification issue. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with you. I think when you look at where LEDs are going, it's really how do you continue to sustain them? And so we would agree with that. And we to date have all our products are controls ready, but we have not moved into controls. My background is in that, and we have been in our product planning looking at, as I heard you mention, just simple controls, on off. Baseball field, the lights can easily be shut off at night, or motion sensors, which we do, to dim down to 10% at night unless there's motion. So we've definitely moved into that space. So I'm in full agreement with you that sustainability is critical to the long-term success of our environment. And
Well, lighting plays such a big role, Greg, Eric, in energy use mitigation. It's really the only technology that has delivered. And I mean, not to beat up the HVAC guys, but we've all seen their proposals: 10-year payback, 5-year payback, 10% reduction of natural gas or electricity on the AC side is monster. Whereas we've been delivering, significant going back to T12 to T8 to T5 to LED. Like we've been removing energy from lighting and giving people better lighting systems for years. And yeah, we've made some mistakes, but we got work to do. Neil Peterson, do you have any final thoughts for the Get a Grip on Lighting listeners before we shut this show down?
I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And again, we definitely think that LED is the way of the future, and addressing more of the sustainability and reliability aspects is definitely where the market will be going. I'm in full agreement with you, and we appreciate the time.
Thank you, Neil Peterson. And if you've made it to the end of the show today, you got to quickly go to KeystoneTech.com. If you want to complete with LED lighting supply, bring Keystone in and you'll get them. KeystoneTech.com. That's light made easy, Greg, the big easy.
That's right there, XFit Sports Lighter. We talked about, the one thing Keystone does almost better than any manufacturer is listen to the marketplace and adapt based on that. You want a remote monitor? Okay, remote mounted driver, we'll do that. 164 feet down, you can do it that far away and make it easy to replace in the future.
And come check out Keystone at the NAILD convention in September, Dallas, Texas. Sign up at naild.org. If you got a warehouse with lights in it, you should be a NAILD member. naild.org. And we thank Neil Peterson of LED Lighting Supply. If you go to the getagriponlighting.com website, you want to check out his LinkedIn, his website, all that will be posted there. You can check him out there. But you guys, all our colleagues out there, we don't have any fans. Somebody said we had fans, Greg, the other day. I said, what are you talking about, fans? We only have colleagues that don't do podcasts. We love you guys. Bye for now.